our industry has done a very good job of pushing great people away. I'll give you an example. The people on his job that knew how to, the journeymen, the masters of the trade, they would tell him, "We're going to break you. You're going to quit. Matter of fact, we're going to give you the worst to do. We're going to have you install an insulation for the next 6 months just so you quit." And it really made it an industry where only the strong survive, and they did. But at the same time, we don't have that luxury anymore. Another thing we would do is we'd say, "Hey, we're gonna let them push a broom for 6 months, push a broom for a year," or even the culture in the industry. You could talk to people with disrespect, or you could treat people less professionally than other industries in the construction industry. And so we pushed very articulate, very intelligent people, or people that had high esteem out of the industry. So we really did ourselves a disservice. I don't think we have the luxury of doing that anymore as an industry. I think we have to reevaluate the culture of the construction industry.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Breaking Ground. I'm your host, Dagan Davis, and with us today we have a really cool episode with Edwin S. Parra, and he is with Construction Ready. He is actually the Director of Employer Engagement at Construction Ready. So, Edwin, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
All right, awesome. So, what we'd like to do here is just kind of go straight into you telling us who you are and what you guys do.
So again, my name is Edwin Parra. I'm the director of employer engagement with an organization called Construction Ready. We're a nonprofit organization that operates mainly in Georgia. We just started to branch into Florida and Alabama. But kind of in a nutshell, we basically help bridge the gap between education and industry and really promote skilled trades amongst young adults entering the workforce, as well as adults that are considering a career change. So we work with a variety of different trade programs across the state, mostly high school programs. We also run a adult pre-apprenticeship that's focused for adults 18 and older that are interested in joining skilled trades of a variety of different industries.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's certainly a very important subject, and which translates to a very important company. So it'd be awesome to see you guys, nationwide someday. But at least you are expanding into other states. This, especially on the skilled trade side, there's a huge shortage, not only in this industry but many others as well. With that being such a big shortage, from your perspective, is it only getting worse? Is it going to continue getting worse? What are you guys seeing on your end?
I'll speak, from a local perspective as far as what we've seen in Georgia over the last, I'd say, 20 years. Um, in Georgia, I think we've made a lot of headway with the challenges we faced as far as the skilled labor gap. One of the biggest challenges that we faced was really the trade programs had been decimated in our high schools and even our tech schools over the last 30 years. Um, Seems like just yesterday I was in high school, but it's been about 30 years. And the last year I was there was the last year my high school had a construction program.
And
Um,
why is that?
you know, I think there's a lot of reasons, or a few reasons. One, there was a big focus on parents sending their kids to college, right? Everybody was, college is the way to go. You can't be successful unless you don't go to college. And the skilled trades really just got a bad rap. That it had kind of a negative connotation. That's what you do if you're a high school dropout or if you're an uneducated person. If you can't get an opportunity doing anything else, and that can't be further from the truth. I mean, construction has always been um, one of those industries that has allowed for generational wealth. It's allowed for people to really break out of poverty, and to do really well, regardless of your educational background. So, I think that was part of it is people pushing their kids to go to college. I think another part of it was really the industry fell short in supporting these trade programs. I think that's probably more so the factor, right? Because, I remember when I was a kid, my parents would tell me things, but a lot of times it'd go in one ear and out the other. So despite what our parents told us, that wasn't the major influence. I think one thing that really influenced kids mostly was they just didn't see opportunity there, you know? And then again, the negative connotation that construction's kind of negative stigma that construction's kind of had over the years. A lot of that has changed, but I think the lack of industry support in our trade programs, in high schools, in tech schools, throughout history hasn't really been there. I know when I was in high school, we would do things like build birdhouses, and half the time it seemed like the instructor was asleep or just not really there for the right reason. So a lot of those programs weren't really effective, and they really weren't conducive to engaging young people and allowing them to see the variety of opportunities that are available in construction today. Um, so I think a lot of that's changed over the last 20 years. I've seen firsthand industry go into these classrooms, elevate the training that these students are able to get, the exposure to different industry that these students are able to get. Construction Ready has been a big part of that. I actually started with Construction Ready about a little less than 6 months ago, but I've worked very closely with them throughout my entire career. I got into the industry back in 2007, worked closely with Construction Ready almost, soon after starting with them, probably around 2013, 2014. And that was one of the biggest draws to the organization that I saw from the industry standpoint is they did a great job of really connecting the dots, connecting industry with our education programs, with our communities, and really getting the buy-in and the support from the industry and from big industry leaders. Some of the biggest names, not only in Georgia but across the country. So we were able to come in and provide resources, provide industry standard technology, ideas, mentors, bring in success stories from our companies. And I think that really started to elevate the level of what these trade programs were now able to offer, and also generate a lot more interest in young people. It was going there more than just, taking a construction class and just, passing the time. Now they were realizing, wow, there's some amazing opportunities here, not only when I graduate, but right now. There's programs that they can get involved in, there's events they can get involved with. We help put on the Career Expo at the State Skills USA competition. We handle the Career Expo portion of that, and we'll have thousands, tens of thousands of kids coming from all over the state of Georgia, competing in every different trade. I'd never seen anything like that growing up, and to be able to see something like that firsthand, it's mind-boggling. We call it, a lot of people compare it to the Super Bowl of skilled trades, because when you walk into the Georgia World Congress Center, which is I think the third largest exhibit venue in the United States. And you feel the vibe, you feel the roar of all these different tools, equipment, people working together, building different contests. There's some energy in there, and it really opens your eyes to what's going on into the momentum in the state of Georgia. So again, firsthand from the state of Georgia perspective, I think we're doing a great job at overcoming the challenges that we face with that skill shortage, and a big part of it has been industry stepping up and doing their part.
Yeah, that's great. And I know, this is such a big, especially in the construction industry right now, it's such a huge shortage and a big problem. And everyone I talk to, this is a reoccurring problem, whether it's heavy equipment technicians or other skilled trades. They're just not getting new talent or new people coming into those trades. And you make a good point. Everyone, whether it was the stigma or else, the funding or the support from the industry. Now that's kind of all backfiring and just getting really just building up. And so um, the 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 biggest thing that I want to kind of learn from you at the moment is what got you into workforce development. And then, is this becoming a passion of yours, or has it been a passion of yours in the past? If you could just speak on that a little bit.
So growing up, I grew up in a blue collar community. My parents, I'm a first generation immigrant. I was born in Colombia, South America. My parents worked two or three jobs at a time. There was four boys that they were raising, so we ate like just ants. I mean, just devoured, all the groceries all the time. So yeah, they struggled to make ends meet. And when we needed things, like school clothes, go to the movies, go to, do stuff in the summertime. We had to go earn that on our own. And so we'd go work with our friends' parents that lived in the neighborhood that ran their own companies. Most of those folks ran different type of construction companies, a masonry company, remodeling company, a plumbing company, etc. And so in the summertime, early on, we'd go work with them. We also would do stuff on our own. We'd mow lawns, from the time I was probably 10, 12 years old, clean gutters, you name it, pressure wash, anything we could do to make a little cash to go do some fun stuff with our friends in the summer, we'd do it. But that's where, and even as a kid, like we love building clubhouses. We would go, find old motorcycles just abandoned in the woods for some reason, and we'd get with our friend's uncle, and he'd show us how to fix them, and little stuff like that. It started to create that inclination to mechanics and building things with your hands and taking things apart and putting them back together. So that kind of piqued my interest into the trades. And then when I was about 24 years old, I had actually been in the financial industry. But a friend of mine approached me and he said, "Hey, um, I work for this commercial drywall company. There's this opportunity available, and I think you'd be great for it." And it was for initially it started as um, basically just doing onboarding and a little bit of recruiting. And then it really evolved over the years heavily into workforce development, creating an apprenticeship, recruiting, and then retainment. And yeah, it's definitely been a passion. I think one of the things that made me most passionate about it is seeing the impact that the opportunities in our industry can create for others. I've seen people come in the door. There's a young man I hired years ago, uh, probably 17, 18 years ago, and he had worked through a temp service. I think he was about 21 years old at the time. He was working for our company through a temp service, and the foreman for the project that he was working on called me and said, "Hey, Ed, I want to hire this guy. He's just completed his session with the temp service. We can hire him on full time. I'm going to send him to you, and then you can hire him and send him out here." Well, in those situations, particularly with that foreman, um, if he said the guy's worth hiring, that's all I needed to hear, because that foreman had a very high standard of expectations, and obviously, if he had impressed him by seeing what he had done on the job over the last 6 months, I knew he was worth hiring. So the guy came in, interview him. Like I said, he was very young, probably 20, 21 years old. I asked him to tell me a little bit about himself. He told me he had a family. I think he had 2 or 3 kids at the time, and I asked him what he was making through the temp service. And when he told me, I was mind boggled because at that time he was making minimum wage. Um, and I don't know how he was able to get by with a wife and 2 or 3 children making minimum wage, which may have been less than $6 an hour at the time.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was blown away and I said, "Well, you have a very strong recommendation. You've really impressed the foreman that you've been working for. And this is what we're going to pay you now." And I slid over the sheet of paper with the job offer. And I think it was like maybe, it was an entry level position, a labor role. This was 17 years ago. So it's probably like 13 bucks an hour. But in that one step, he doubled his pay. And you would have thought that I gave him a check for $1 million by the look on his face. He was blown away.
Yeah.
And he said, "Man, you don't know what this means to me. You don't know what my wife's gonna be blown away." Anyway, we look back 18 years later, that individual is still with the same company, my previous employer. He's now in a leadership safety role. He's been able to purchase a home, put his kids through school. Um, he's probably making closer to six figures now, to be honest with you, if not at least six figures. And started out as a laborer. So seeing it, people come in the door with from all walks of life. There's kids that we've hired that were going to college. They came to us straight out of high school, wanted to work in the trades, but were pursuing a higher level education in a university to get a bachelor's degree in construction management. And they were able to complete an apprenticeship while also getting a bachelor's degree in construction management with a university like Kennesaw State University. And then really what I call create a double-edged sword. A lot of times you have the individuals go into construction management, whether it's a superintendent role or a project manager, and they have the construction management degree, but they don't have the skilled hands-on field training, right? or vice versa. You'll have folks with the skills training, but they don't have the educational background. So to
Right.
be able to combine the two really puts these folks in a league of their own, and we've seen that as well. So just all different walks of life come into this industry and really change their lives and create phenomenal opportunities for themselves and for their families. And that's one of the things that really drives my passion for my particular role is be able to open the door for others and see them carve out these opportunities and be successful.
Yeah, and it is interesting to kind of think about how everyone was going to college to get a better job and to have that, let's say, longevity in career, where you're not having to worry so much about needing a job. Now, with the implementation of AI, I think that's one thing that is really, really shifting everything, and it may shift everything right back to the trades. And so the trades are becoming more and more important. And I think this is for people that aren't in the industry. This is something very important to hear: is that there's more and more opportunity, and it's only growing in the trades. And so it's more of a matter of it's the opposite. If you go to a trade school, you you're not gonna have a hard time finding a job when you get out. You may have a job during or even even before, just knowing that you're a future tradesman. So um, there's a lot of opportunity there, and I think that's just great to see. And if you're looking for a job today, and you don't mind getting your hands dirty, and learning some of these trades, or if you do know the trades, there's a lot of jobs out there, and exactly what we're talking about. So especially in the construction industry, and that's why I was excited to have this episode, because there is so much opportunity out there. It's not even funny. You go on YouTube today. This is going to be on YouTube, this episode. You go on YouTube, and next to this episode, you'll probably see a bunch of AI videos of people scaring other people, saying AI is going to take all of our jobs. Well, that's not going to be the case in construction, at least anytime soon, right? So if you come into construction, you're gonna be perfectly fine. Especially if you're a good worker, if you're, a good person, you're not gonna have a lot of trouble. You're gonna, like you said, you have an opportunity to make a lot of money. We've had manufacturers on this show say the same exact thing. So organizations, manufacturers, dealers, construction companies, they're all saying the same thing. They've all been through it. They all know. So this is the place to be if you're afraid that you're going to lose your job to AI. Definitely.
Yeah, and it's even starting to incorporate itself into what we do. So not replacing us, we're really incorporating itself into our industry. There's virtual reality tools to do layout now, laser tools. AI is becoming a part of project management. So there's ways to incorporate it, but yeah, that human component, I don't see it going anywhere for a very long time. And I think if anything, the technology is just going to help enhance what we already do and to be able to do it at a higher level and maybe a more efficient level. We've already seen that with some of the tools that are in the industry, and it continues to evolve. So I think it's a very exciting time to be part of the industry. There's an old saying that says, with every obstacle, there's an opportunity. And that's kind of been our approach to the skilled labor shortage. You know, while it was a big challenge, there was a major opportunity in that challenge. So again, we talked about, the fact that the trade programs really weren't effective. They weren't attractive. They weren't really enticing people into the industry and encouraging people to get into the industry. Um, that was a great opportunity. It was a great opportunity for industry to step in and say, hey, this is what it takes to be successful in our industry. These are credentials you can earn right now in high school and come out of high school with value. So our organization actually does a great job of that with our industry certification program, where we go into local high schools, we bring in local industry, and we say, hey, your program's doing great here, but here's some areas where you need to improve in order to meet the needs of your local industry. And this is coming directly from the industry partners in that community.
That's
So
great.
we say, hey, for example, your students need to come in here with work boots, or we recommend you guys give everybody an OSHA 10, or learn how to use fall protection equipment. You can give those students those certifications right now. They're industry recognized credentials. They raise the value of that individual once they enter the workforce. But more importantly, they're also preparing these students for real life opportunities and again, increasing their values. I probably hired in my career while I was with industry, probably well over 150 to 200 folks that came out of what we call the K-12 pipeline or the adult apprenticeship from Construction Ready. And out of every one of those individuals, not one of them was ever in a recordable accident. That's huge because over 70% of accidents in construction occur with individuals who are new to the industry or new to the company, meaning folks that don't have training, right? They're
Yeah,
totally
they just don't know what to look for.
Exactly. So these programs, by us going in there and raising the standards of these programs, making them industry driven programs, we're literally able to go in and eliminate the biggest risk factor in our industry by preparing young talent early on and really increasing their value. So that also turns to dollars, right? Now that these folks are come in with industry credentials, come in with some type of certifications, now you're not looking at them like any Joe Schmo walking in off the street totally entry level with nothing to bring to the table. They actually have credentials. They actually have experience. Um, Now we have a platform here in Georgia called the Construction Ready Digital Platform, and it's on our website, and basically, students can go in there from across the state of Georgia. They can register, they can create their own profile, they can add credentials, any certifications that they've earned while they've been in high school, any trade related competitions that they've competed in, or any trade projects that they've done in their school programs. They can upload all of that to their platform. And then their industry partners can come in and say, we're looking for a student who competed in welding in Dalton, Georgia. They can go to the schools in that area, pull up every student that's competed in Dalton in welding, and see those students firsthand, and start to build a relationship and a rapport with those students for recruiting. So it's a great program. We have a waiver program. So if the student's parents signed a waiver saying that the student could be contacted for employment, the employers can reach directly out to them. If not, their identities, kept um, off the profiles, but the employers can reach out directly to the instructor and make the connections that way. But it's a way for students to start developing their credentials, their resume, and really start creating their career opportunities before they even hit the workforce.
And start creating those relationships,
Yep.
right, with the
Yep.
employers and just the industry in
Correct.
general. Awesome. Well, Edwin, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we will be right back.
Sounds great.
Every job site comes with pressure. Deadlines stacking, crews moving, jobs depending on you. But behind the scenes, everything slows down. Quotes and bids, calls, service tickets, even admin work stacks up. With high-level talent, you can hire remote staff to fill the traditional office positions at half the cost, so your team can focus on what actually makes money. Scale your operation without scaling your overhead. High-level talent. Visit highleveltalent.com today to learn more.
All right. And we're back to another episode of Breaking Ground. We're here with Edwin Parra.
Hmm.
And Edwin, thanks for being with us again. And we'll just move straight back into what I just cut you off on. And so with the tech schools specifically, I want to circle back to those. I know you said that you were bringing industry professionals into the tech schools to speak and kind of give their feedback based on how they should be preparing to then go into the industry. Now, typically, when you're going into these tech schools, if you can talk about this, how many individuals are students in these schools right now? It does it seem like a really small number to you? Does it seem like it's growing over the years? What's your take on that?
So it definitely varies by programs. And so you have career academies in high schools now, which are college and career academies. They're basically a lot of times they're designed as kind of like a feeder program. So they'll have multiple schools that send students to this school for either college or career type training, right?
Okay.
So that's our college and career academies. And then you have high school trade programs. So it's just a regular high school with that the students from that high school can take advantage of this particular trade program at that school. We've seen a huge increase in those programs over the last 10, 20 years. I mean, we've seen entire college and career academies built just within the last 5, 10 years across the state of Georgia. So those have been great. That's definitely increased the attendance, the amount of students that are interested in those programs. So they vary. You know, sometimes you'll go into programs, you may see uh, 5 to 10 students. And then sometimes you'll go in and you'll see up to 30. Then you also have the technical college trade programs, which typically offer an associate's in construction management or an associate's in engineering, an associate's in HVAC, welding, et cetera. So there's a few different type of trade programs in the school systems from high schools up to post-secondary. And again, yeah, you'll see a variety of different, participation in it across the state of Georgia. But yeah, we'll go in. We go in with industry partners. A lot of the industry partners will come in and do career pathway presentation. That's something that definitely helped me gain a lot of traction in my experience in the industry. I would go in and do a career pathway presentation, just presenting the company, who we are, what we do, and then explaining how you would start a career with us and grow into upper management. We would actually give the students flyers that they could take home, or a flyer, and it was really just like a roadmap. It showed them, hey, day one, starting out with us, this is kind of what your life would look like. This is what you make. This is what you do. Here's what you'd be required to learn. And if you learn those things, you advance to the next level. And if you learn, the components on the next level, you advance so on and so forth. And within 5 years, you in most of those situations, you could be if not at a six-figure income, very close to a six-figure income and working your way up to it. Um, so yeah, that's and then we also follow those up with a hands-on workshop. So I came out of the drywall industry, so we would do a metal stud framing mock-up, which most people know about framing and they think just it's all wood. But commercial construction, particularly in Atlanta, Georgia, it's a major city in the United States. Most of the high rises are built with metal. And just like myself, I was in, same situation. I had never worked with metal until I started working for the drywall company that I went to work for. And it was an eye opener. I had no idea that even existed, but it's everywhere. It's in most hospitals, most schools, airports, office buildings, etc. So really just being able to go in and kind of show pique those kids' interest and let them see and put their hands on real life materials and build a small component. That's when you'd really see the light bulb go off and the kids get interested. So that was a very important component of really engaging the emerging workforce and enlightening them to our specific industry. And a lot of industry partners do that with a variety of different workshops today.
Awesome. So, based on based on what you're doing, you guys are really innovating on the industry and trying to push along change or really just make things better, right? When it comes to getting more people in construction and especially on the talent job side, right? So, w- when that comes to mind, is there something out there that just still needs to change? Is there something that would better prepare the next generation or better help recruit the next generation into these tech schools?
So that's a very great point, Megan, and I'm glad you brought that up because as an industry, we all hear the skilled labor shortage. We hear, we need more people. We need more people. The industry needs, tens of thousands of new emerging workforce over the next 5 years. 20,000 are leaving this year, et cetera. What we don't hear is how to retain those individuals. And I think that's something, it's a 50-50 process. Recruiting is 50% of it, retaining is the other 50. And it may even lead more to 30, 70% need being the focus in retaining. Because otherwise we have a revolving door. And what I'm getting at is traditionally our industry has done a very good job of pushing great people away. I'll give you an example. My old construction manager told me when he started in the industry, his first few weeks, the people, and this was, probably 35, 40 years ago, but the people on his job that knew how to, the journeymen, the masters of the trade, they would tell him, we're going to break you. You're going to quit. Matter of fact, we're going to give you the worst to do. We're going to have you install an insulation for the next 6 months just so you quit, you know? And it really made it an industry where only the strong survive, and they did. But at the same time, we don't have that luxury anymore. You know, another thing we would do is we'd say, hey, we're gonna let them push a broom for 6 months, push a broom for a year, or even the culture in the industry. Well, you could talk to people with disrespect, or you could treat people less professionally than other industries in the construction industry. And so we pushed very articulate, very intelligent people, or people that had high esteem out of the industry. So we really did ourselves a disservice. I don't think we have the luxury of doing that anymore as an industry. I think we have to reevaluate the culture of the construction industry. And I think we need to look at what works. Yeah, it's a physical industry, it's a demanding industry. Well, let's look at other physical and demanding industry. Look at sports, for example. I heard Tony Dungy the other day uh, was talking about how when he was coaching one of his teams had lost an important game or something, and he told his team in the locker room, he said, something to the effect of it. I'm going to misquote it, but it was something to this effect. He said, "If you guys are looking for a coach that's going to cuss you out when you mess up, you need to go find another coach." And that was his way of coaching. He didn't want to treat people so bad to get the best out of them. It was the opposite. He wanted to really bring the best out of people by encouraging them, putting them in the right situation, building them up instead of breaking them down. We talk about building and building and building, and construction is all about building. But the most important thing we can build is our workforce from a company standpoint. And I saw that cultural change in my previous employer. When I first started there, it was very much that tough, rough, love mentality. And I saw it change over the years once we realized, hey, there's a different approach we can take here. We can actually give people the right opportunity when we see the potential early on, and it's a win-win for everybody. It encourages that individual to push harder up front. And then we're also able to get a more productive individual that much quicker. So where you would have put the broom in a person's hand that could have done a lot more in 6 months, and you sat there and wasted him away for 6 months, now he's productive at 6 months. And we saw that. So, our carpenters could frame walls, soffits, acoustic ceilings, hang drywall, install doors. A carpenter journeyman could do that. Um, what we were able to do with someone 6 months in the industry was make them productive at one of those facets. So, for example, framing a wall. Yeah, they might not know how to do everything a journeyman knows how to do, but they could get as productive as a journeyman in one of those components. And all of a sudden, you're paying an apprentice to do the same exact job that you would be paying a journeyman. And that's what can happen when you really nurture and grow and evolve our talent the way our industry can do it. So again, that's just another example of where the obstacle that's there is really an opportunity. And I think our industry has an amazing opportunity to turn that culture around, turn that dynamic around. We can look at the sports industry as a perfect example of doing that. And that's part of what our K-12 pipeline does is we start students early. We're working in elementary schools with programs, getting kids interested into the industry, then going into middle schools, then going into high schools. We're also bringing our industry partners in for consortiums. We're bringing them in to advisory boards. They're hearing firsthand success stories from kids that have been in the industry now 5 years, 10 years, and saying, hey, this is what worked with my employer. And let me tell you what didn't work, right? So they're hearing firsthand those cultural clashes that are happening, and they're adjusting. And I think that that's needed. We have to reevaluate the way our cultures exist in our workforce. And I think it's only going to elevate the industry overall.
And are you guys explaining this career pathway to them as means of helping with the retention?
To industry partners?
No, to the students directly.
Yeah. So, a lot of the instructors in our programs across the state came out of industry. So, some of the most successful instructors um, really do a great job of creating that level of expectation in terms of work ethic, reliability, communication. It's not rocket science, and it's not something that's impossible to do. It's wake up every day, get there early, get there and go to work. Do a good day's hard work. Be honest about what you do and be consistent about it. Be disciplined and consistent, and the rest will play itself out. And good instructors that in our programs are doing a great job of conveying that to the emerging workforce and preparing their students in that.
Yeah, that's good. And just to touch back on one of your earlier points is that the industry used to be a lot tougher, let's say management styles, right?
Mhm.
And just supervising, the people under you. It was tougher. It was more cutthroat, which I firmly believe there's a place for that. But there's also, cultures are changing, and you have to be careful with who you're dealing with, and who you're managing, and who's coming up through the ranks. And so, I you're right. There's that culture, both cultures. You have the older managers, and then you have the younger generation coming in. And they have to figure out a way to ultimately work together. Mainly, the managers have to figure out the way to work with the students, because then they're the ones teaching them for the next generation, right? So it's kind of a domino effect, but it's it's one of those things where they have to be really careful about how they deal with it, because anyone could go work in an office and not have to deal with half of the things that you deal with in construction, but you then deal with other stresses, right? The fact that you're just not outside, you're not traveling, you're not doing these things. You're stuck in an office, or you're worried about like we were talking about AI taking over your job. Um, there's a lot of good and bad, but what would you say the career path that's in the highest demand right now with what you guys work?
So obviously, we've seen an explosion in the data center world. Really over the last 6, 7 years, is continuing to grow, which is putting a heavy, heavy demand on electricians, welders, and carpenters. Because obviously all those wires and all that steel has to go inside of walls and ceilings. So that's where your carpenters come into hand. And so yeah, I'd say those are three of probably the biggest industry. But then everything's involved in that. You got HVAC, you got concrete. So there's really just a big demand overall in the major skill trades. Uh, but again, yeah, I'd say electricians. Another part about the electrician field is, it's one of those trades that obviously it's very detailed oriented. There's a lot of technology involved, and there's a lot to learn that you can't learn in a short amount of time. So the demand for that is probably going to continue to grow just because the learning curve is so big. So even when you're bringing people in, they won't be able to be at a journeyman level electrician for the next 5 years at least. Where in other fields, there's ways to offer more effective and efficient training to expedite that. With electrical field, it's kind of set in stone.
Yeah. So what's the biggest misconception when it comes to the way students think about the industry?
That's a good question. I would say probably that it's hard, that it's difficult, and the reality is it's not. If you're mechanically inclined and you like working with your hands, um, most people with those abilities can find one industry that they can be really good at. And the biggest challenge is really just discipline and consistency. That's it. If you're disciplined, if you can get up and go to work every day and work hard, you're going to do very, very well in our industry. Um, there's not a lot of people that go out there and put 100% into what they do. And if you like what you do and you do that on a daily basis, our industry can afford you on a lot of success.
Okay. And then one last main question is how do we make skilled trades attractive again? How do we make it to the point where, everyone at one point in time is thinking, can I work with my hands? Can I get up and go and enjoy it? What you were just talking about. How do we do that?
So I think part of what we've done in Georgia is a perfect example. I think it's the right playbook. Number one, introduce it into the school systems early on, and it's never too early. Just like sports, the high school I went to, kids played football from the time they were kindergarten all the way through high school together. They went to the state championship. They literally were bred to play together, right? They were bred to play football. We can use that same playbook. We can introduce kids to construction early on, generate that interest early on, and then create the programs in the pipeline to where they can continue that passion and make sure that they're really getting industry standard training and education. And that's where our industry has to continue to support and continue to make the impact that we've been making. And that's why I think Georgia's a leader in workforce development right now. We have different organizations, corporations, companies coming to us here in Georgia saying, "Hey, we love what y'all do. Can y'all bring it to us here?" And it's just kind of a testament to what can be done when these parties come together, when that gap is bridged with industry and educators, and when there's an organization in the middle that's really helping to facilitate and push that growth across the state. Great things are possible, and I think we're seeing that in Georgia.
Awesome. So if there is leaders listening to this right now, what what would you say on the construction ready side? What helps you guys? Let's say there's a leader in Georgia or one of the states that you're expanding to that's listening to this at this moment. What do you guys need?
So one of the things that's really impressed me early on, from the industry side about construction ready is number one, they offered local state level and federal advocacy work. So they went to our state leaders, they went to our federal leaders and said, hey, there is a need early on before the buzzword was even there, skilled labor shortage. Construction ready was one of the forerunners of bringing that to national attention and saying we need resources. We have to start looking at this now. Um, the Home Depot Foundation is one of our major supporters. They do a phenomenal work in the state of Georgia in this capacity. We couldn't do what we do without them. And then our other industry leaders, they saw the need that was there, and they stepped in and were willing to would support organizations like ours and invest into the community, invest into our young people, and invest into adults that were interested in pursuing careers in our industry. So I think as a whole that's the playbook. That's what we need to do nationwide. Our industry leaders, our community leaders, our politicians need to look at this and say, "Hey, how do we work on this together? How do we connect the dots? How do we bridge these gaps together?" And when we work together, major success can be accomplished for all different walks of life, really for our entire community, and we become one of those very important engines in our nation. And I think the state of Georgia has been able to do that on a very high level because of the amount of support that we get across the board.
That's awesome. So now, if anyone wants to learn more about you guys, or reach out to you guys, or get in contact with you, how do they do that?
So feel free to look us up online, constructionready.org. We're also on all the major socials, just constructionready.org or construction ready. But yeah, feel free to check us out online, and we're just keep doing what we're doing. Thank you for your support, and thank you for bringing this onto your station.
Awesome. Well, Edmund, once again, thank you very much for coming on the episode with me. I know we talked before this just a little bit, and this was even better conversation. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming on. This is really important stuff, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. So we'll see everyone next time on the next episode of Breaking Ground. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ed. Take care.
Every job site comes with pressure. Deadlines stacking, crews moving, jobs depending on you. But behind the scenes, everything slows down. Quotes and bids, calls, service tickets, even admin work stacks up. With high-level talent, you can hire remote staff to fill the traditional office positions at half the cost. so your team can focus on what actually makes money. Scale your operation without scaling your overhead. High-level talent. Visit highleveltalent.com today to learn more.